Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel here on YouTube, where Kahuna and I've got the TNT takes here in the Challenge 39, episode 2. That's right, I'm your host, Chris, and we're back to discuss Battle for a New Champion. Kahuna, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, man. Doing really good. I had a week at work, and we both started new jobs recently, so that's stressing us out. But we get to relax by chatting about a show that we love, or do we? Every single week, in and out. That's what we want to talk about. But episode 2. We're starting a new season. I was high on last week. New cast. I was so much about it that I loved. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's a good question because I loved last week. I thought it was coming in with a bang. We're going to get a new champion. It's nice to see new alliances and maybe fresh gameplay coming into the show. But I don't know. I kind of went through this episode and I got to the end and I kind of felt a little bit flat. There's definitely things to talk about. There's definitely a lot happening. But sometimes, you got to wonder if quantity is better than quality, and we got a lot of things happening, but was it good? And that's why you and I are here. We're here to dissect and talk about it. I know that there's a lot of people who are very excited to have the main show back, but are they? Because I saw some comments this week as well, Kahuna, that last week only, I think it barely had 200,000 people watch it,
Really?
which is insane. I hope I'm wrong about the ratings, but apparently the ratings was horrible on
Wow,
MTV.
I mean, how much of that is the show and how much of that is, MTV? Like, once people have
Yeah.
gotten used to the challenge on CBS, used to the challenge on Paramount, are they still going to the flagship when there's been other versions more
Mm,
readily available?
mm. And I also want to say, I have been completely off social media. For those that are listening to this at a later stage, if you've been trying to get a hold of me, I apologize. Work's been hectic. It's been full on my end. I don't have one of those jobs where you can go in and just relax. I've got a job where you have got to set the pace and you've got to create. So, if you don't get to sit back and then follow someone else's lead, I have to lead, so that takes a different kind of mental energy when you go into it. So because of that, I haven't been on social as much as I would usually be, which isn't a lot either. So I haven't even had time to really verify the source that I saw this from. So I could be completely wrong, but I heard that the viewership wasn't where it used to be, and I saw that number. I hope it's wrong because that would mean that it's doing worse than the Challenge USA 2, which had over 1 million viewers watching it per episode.
Two very different platforms, though.
Yeah.
And I think on MTV, I would assume anyway, again, no verifiable data, but I assume that there'd be more on rewatch and streaming than would have watched initially on cable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I don't know what it is. There's just something that felt a little bit different for me here in this episode. We'll talk about it. We'll both digest it. We're both people who love to sort of let it marinate. Normally, we get an opportunity to watch the show and then we have more time to record, but we literally both just watched the episode
Yeah.
and hit the record button straight afterwards. So chances are by the time we've actually had time to think about it, maybe it will sit differently with us. But we start off with the episode and it's the classic scene where everybody goes back to the house. Big T is celebrating a big win. She's staying in the game. She's really happy about it. And this is where we see a lot of different things happening, right? Horacio is a bit fearful. He was the only one voting for her. We commented last week on how horrible of a move that was. And it looks like the whole challenge fandom have started to turn their back on Horacio. They're now really annoyed by him, Kuna. Are you surprised? He was the golden boy 1 season ago. Does the challenge fandom have like short-term memory?
I mean, the challenge fandom is pretty fickle, especially for new people. It takes a lot to sort of ingratiate yourself over many years with the fandom, and new people very rarely can unseat their legends. Horacio seemed like he might have been the golden boy, but then one little mistake and the knives are out for him.
Yeah,
Um,
suddenly he's behind Devon. People dislike him more than Devon, or like him less than Devon at the moment, which is crazy.
that's the thing. Is it with Devon and Horacio is the comparison?
No, I'm going to have people angry at me for even saying that. I'm sure he hasn't fallen behind Devon, but looking at this, it was interesting to see that. Obviously, we get Jay and Chauncey talking. That's going to be a big part of this episode, the relationship between the two of them. And I've got to say, man, throughout this episode, Jay is just doing Jay again. He is playing all angles, trying to manipulate people to go in there, throw themselves into the arena. And you've got to wonder, can this kid do this and get to the end? I know I call him a kid. He's in his 30s already. He's not really a kid anymore. But it's kid-like behavior because I feel like he's going to get caught out at some stage, Kahuna.
I mean, there's however many years of television history that says you play all the sides, then they're going to find out, right? And they even put the graphic up with his head in between like 15,000 people saying that he's aligned with everyone. And even the people that he's not aligned with, he's still good with. So someone's not going to like that. But I mean, in this episode, off the back of that description and what we saw play out, even though he's throwing haymakers out there, he's doing, like you said, Jay doing Jay things. He seems to be pretty well insulated at the moment anyway. And I'm interested to see if that tangled web that he seems to have woven and they actually made it a graphical display maybe trips him up later.
I got to ask the question, is Chauncey the poor man's version of Leroy? Like, is he like the new Leroy that's just come onto the scene because he's too nice for this game, physically capable and gifted, but I just feel like you could put Chauncey out there 20 times, he's not winning the show because he just doesn't seem like he's got BMT or just the smarts about him. The smarts, you know?
Man, that was if there was ever an episode to make yourself look bad, and then they edited in things like I want to do it for my kid. I feel this pressure because Amber's a champion, and I'm like, oh, this guy. It's just the classic. Challenge doesn't do it as often as like Survivor or something, but they call it the Dodo edit. Chauncey was like, maybe that's why we're feeling a little bit funny about this episode, Chris, because last week we were very high and the focus on the episode was Big T.
100%.
Right? She got so much airtime. We got a lot of Michelle, the Kyland sort of thing. And this episode, when it's Chauncey as the main character, I think it's a harder sell.
Yeah. And even James, like, I know we're going to be all over the place again, but that's kind of how we do these recaps in any case. But even James, like, I like James on the UK. I know him. I've never seen his original show. Apparently, he's a big thing in the UK. Don't know anything about it, but he was on the Challenge UK. I saw him get injured, go out of the game, all that kind of stuff. And I thought he could be a very big character. And I like him as a character on the show. I mean, the whole episode for him was definitely more entertaining to watch than Chauncey. We can agree on that at least. But even when he beat Chauncey at the end, being like, "Oh, it was a given," I'm just that good, and I'm like, "Bro, you won by a freaking point," and he's like acting like that the whole game is on lock. He's gonna go to the end and win it. Yeah. He's walking to the freaking board, putting in those cylinders like he's crawling his way to victory, and then he's like, "It was never in doubt. I'm the best."
Not once, not a second of doubt. No, when you thought maybe you might die if you have to go any longer, there was never a doubt, not once.
I'm like, what is going on? Like, this guy, like, has there been someone on the show with a bigger ego or like a more inflated view on himself? Like with having done so little, but you already feel like you're there. It's just
look, I don't mind James. He seems
he's
cool.
fun.
Like,
He's fun.
He seems competent, but again, like
he's definitely confident.
When you're building an episode arc around the characters that play an important part, sometimes episodes can fall flat if the two like he's good, he is confident, but is he the foil or the main sort of thing up against Chauncey when you're trying to do two different storylines and get to know them a bit? I don't know if he's big enough to carry the dead weight that is a Chauncey episode, I think.
There was a couple of things this episode that was weird. I mean, okay, we go into the training montage. They love doing those. Definitely always good when there's some eye candy on the show. We can agree on that at least. I don't mind those training montages. But then they go straight to the Yui and Olivia scene with them both sitting there bonding about the fact that, he was a gypsy. Obviously I can sympathize with the fact that, obviously being an outcast and then being an outcast within being an outcast, obviously being that he was gay, that probably had a massive effect on him growing up, and it sort of brought that resilience, and he's got that positive outlook in life. No matter, even when they do horribly in the daily, like he's always positive. And that was cool to see. But it was like, why are we seeing this scene? It kind of felt out of place. Like, where's this going? This bond between Olivia and Yui, And I hope it does play out. I hope Olivia and Yui has some sort of thing going on in the future where one of them saves the other. But it felt out of place somewhat in this episode compared to where the storyline was going. And I feel like that's the thing for me with this episode. There was a lot being shown to us, but I didn't feel like it was pointing to a direction.
Yeah, I think it was just that Huey was one of the potential threads, right? Like it was, is it
True.
going to be Chauncey? Is it going to be Huey? So maybe they were just building up Huey a little bit, like give him some screen time because he might be a choice there, but Chauncey made sure that he wasn't.
And I guess the one thing, I'm being super critical here, but the one thing we can say about that, him having that bond with Olivia and sort of, them creating that bond. Olivia isn't Team USA. So when Team USA have to think about, will we go after one of our own or Yui, Olivia seems to be pretty high up in the hierarchy when it comes to the woman in that alliance. And maybe it wasn't well explained, but thinking it through, that's probably why they showed it, that he had that bond.
Because she did go to bat for him, didn't she?
Yeah.
She said specifically, I would trust Huey over. Yeah, there you go. You've answered your own question there, Chris.
See, that's why I said
producer mindset.
That's why I said, like, listen, we're doing this straight after the episode, straight after we've watched it, so we're digesting it. We're working it out with our audience here today. That's how we do things. We workshop things between the two of us. We're not always right. We don't feel like we're James behind the mic.
Man, I feel like both of these episodes back to back, maybe they should have done some workshopping on their, the way they approach their strategy. They're especially in the what is it? Oh my god, I just blanked. Is it mediation?
I feel like mediation, yeah. Sounds right.
We'll go with that. Mediation. What is it called?
Deliberation.
Deliberation. It's
deliberation. They literally do a deliberation on the episode. How can you forget that, Kahuna?
That's what I'm saying. I forgot the word that they use for it in the show.
In the show,
but So just they need to workshop their ideas before they start giving speeches. Both episodes so far, back to back, people have come up with some great ideas, I think.
Yeah, well, some people may say we need to workshop our podcasts before we go live straight after these episodes. But what I say to that is we do it pro bono. It's not like we're getting paid like millions and millions of dollars. Probably these guys won't get paid millions either, but thousands and thousands of dollars, I guess, to do what they do. And they've been doing it for like 40 plus seasons, if you look at all of the other shows that they've done as well. But we love to come here on the mic, hang out for a little bit, talk a little bit about the show, and let it rip and let the conversation go in any direction that it sort of flows. Kind of like Yui when he was climbing up that rope.
It's the chaos. It's the chaos portion.
We're on this podcast. We're all over the topics like Yui over those boys when he was climbing that rope.
I like how Huey in that scene there in the challenge. Interesting challenge, by the way. Like the one thing I will say, like I mentioned it last week, but the fact that the team version of it right now,
that's cool.
We're seeing some really different, unique things where it really, really does depend on some very strong teamwork and communication and strategy as well. Like you could see the two different sides, but that challenge and Huey, I like how he's like, oh, it's not about my strength. It's because I can't figure out where to climb. I'm like, no, mate. Because even if you put your hand there, you're still not holding yourself up. And we saw that. Big T's talking about his booty and stuff. I like it's fun. Yeah, he's good. He's good fun, but he's not good.
His booty was dragging him down. There was too much G-force in his booty, pulling him. The gravity was pulling him back down to the bottom. He couldn't get up that rope. I love the challenge. The challenge was a lot of fun. They had 23 balls. Each ball was worth $2,000, but if they could get all 23 up there, TJ said he would do $50,000 for them if they got up there. It looked terrifying, by the way, because listen, I'm someone that have done a lot of obstacle course races, and I'm actually in the middle of training for one next year. I want to get back into it next year. Now that I'm over in Australia, there's a lot of it going around, so I'll probably do one of the not the 20. I wouldn't do the 24 kilometer. Yeah, I'll do like an 11 kilometer one or something like that. I'll warm myself up to getting back to the 20K plus, but. In any case, so I've done some rope climbs before, and they're hard. They're not easy. So this is the unique thing about this season compared to other seasons, that Other seasons, the layups play into your favor because if they're bad, you can easily win the dailies, get power. But now you got to work with them. It's kind of like what Kyland said at the end of this: is that everybody gave their best. The problem is that everybody's best isn't the same.
No,
I love it.
100%. You know who impressed me in that one though was, I don't know if it impressed me from the strategy because I don't think it was the smartest to put her there, but Olivia is a monster, man. She's like,
Yeah,
she's an anchor on this team.
She took some hits, man, with the guys climbing all over her.
Yeah,
You know, her
but
face
also, like,
getting in the way. Like, was it James who was like her
Yeah.
specific confessional where she was like, "This
He's
is
the
not
Hulk."
like, yeah." She's like, "He's the Hulk," and with James being on top of me, this is not how I envisioned it in my dreams. You know, I love that. I love that little line there.
But she did so. She obviously, taking feet to the face. They're like all over her.
She's tough.
She's directing them. She's like, step on my shoulder. Like she can actually. She was almost like leading it from the middle of the ladder kind of thing, rather than from the top or the bottom. But yeah, it was. There's a lot of stuff that came out of that. Chauncey again,
How?
sticking himself there. Like,
The guy is a physical specimen. The guy looks like Black Panther, right? He's freaking ripped, man. Or what's that guy who went up against Black Panther, the bad guy in the first one? Yeah, Killmonger.
Michael B.
He's
Jordan.
Like Michael B. Jordan, man. Like I could see Chauncey.
He does look like him, doesn't he?
Yeah, he could play in Creed 4, man. I wouldn't know. I'd be like, man, this guy, you know, he could be mistaken for a in shape boxer. You know what I mean? And the guy can't freaking clip himself in. It's like the most basic thing. It's like when you say some people are like physically gifted, but they just don't have that something that you need to perform on the big stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the Dodo edit for him was strong because he was backing it up after, like, you know, everything. So everything went wrong for Chauncey in this episode.
Can we talk a little bit about Melissa?
That's what I was going to ask you about.
What went wrong? What went wrong with Melissa? She gets to the top, must be afraid of heights, and she gets it's that moment where, you know, Banana spoke about it on the Challenge USA too, where he said some people just freeze when they get fear in them, you know, and she froze up there. She couldn't make the leap over to the podium. And if that was Michaela, she would have forced herself probably to do it because she's got that opposite approach where I'm fearful of it, therefore I must complete it.
Yeah. Just push through it. Melissa, ran into that wall. I don't know how long she was up there and how much of it was the edit, but it seemed like I feel like if you've gotten all the way up that high, like she hasn't really shown a sense of fear in the past, and then to get all the way up there, you're already there. Wouldn't the scarier thing to be staying on it rather than getting onto the platform? You know what I mean? But that
I feel
transition must be a doozy.
It must be. And also I feel like on the camera you probably couldn't see how far the actual
gap was.
The gap was for her to get up on that platform. And it felt like the rope was sort of pulling sideways and maybe moving a little bit as well while she was there. So I feel like all of that would have added to her fear. And she's not the tallest girl either. But it does bring up the whole conversation. Like they could have had a different strategy coming into this, but Michelle took charge. And she was the one who had the strategy for the biggest and strongest men to be at the bottom, to anchor it. It kind of makes sense to a little bit. But I feel like a staggered approach would have probably been better in this case, right?
Well, what you end up with, I don't know what the best approach is because,
could you have gone? Question for you on this: could you have gone all women on one rope, all men on the other rope? Because if you did that, effectively half of the team gave up to try and help give them the balls because they couldn't get it right. So what if all of the men just powered through it and they were just like, listen, let's try this. Let's at least make sure the men can climb on top of each other. We don't have to worry about James climbing over Melissa to try and get to the top.
Yeah.
We'll just try and climb on top of each other and at least make sure we get half of this done.
Yeah. And if you have a strong full ladder of all men, then the women might be able to scale them a lot better than the men having to worry about climbing over the women.
Yeah,
and
I'd
then
much
the men
rather
can climb up the men as well.
Yeah, I'd much rather have other women. Like if I was a woman, I'd rather have a Melissa climb on me or something like that. You know what I mean? Like the whole James versus Olivia. I have listen. Different podcast, Kahuna. Behave. You're a married man, all right?
No, but how they abandoned it. Sorry, how they abandoned one ladder and then just went up the one that was good, and
Yeah,
sort of changed tactics. They could have just done like a full strong man ladder. That sounds like such a weird thing to
a
say, a man
man
ladder.
ladder.
Yeah, a ladder of men, and then everyone could have just gone up this strong man ladder. I keep
Yeah.
saying it, and it feels funny every time.
Yeah, I feel like that could have been a strategy, but there was a few of them that did get to the top. Colleen, Michelle, who else was at the top? There were three of them that made it to the top. I know Colleen and Michelle was there.
Yeah.
Colleen's been absolutely a quiet achiever this episode. Saying she's sitting in the shadow. She's playing that mole game pretty effectively at the moment.
Was it Raven?
Maybe Raven. It could be Raven. I
I
can't
think it was
remember. I
Raven
know
or
chat will let
Nerese.
us know. Chat will let us
Yeah,
know.
see,
Chat will definitely let us
Nerese
know.
on the one that didn't do great, she was like, I remember watching it going, I understand their tactic because, like, to get to that first clip, you want someone light to be able to get up there. But I was like, but who's going to climb on her? Like,
Mm,
like, you needed someone small to be able to get to the clip. But once you're at that clip, you need someone to grab you and climb on you and pull on you and all that sort of thing.
yeah.
So yeah, like the women, they, when it comes to these team challenges, they're doing challenges which makes the women at a disadvantage both
Mm.
times so far,
Are
right?
you saying that the women were to blame again? Kahuna, are you blaming the
No,
women for this one?
well, they didn't at all. But I mean, we saw, like, I don't think those clips are not staggered. Like,
Yeah.
they're the same distance apart. There's no height measurement when it comes to the clips and stuff on the thing, right?
Yeah.
So being able to
I
reach
was giving
one
you
over
bait,
the
mate.
other.
I was giving you bait to, I was giving you the rope for you to hang yourself, because I know people would be
Yeah,
coming for you if you were like,
I'll never
it's the
talk
woman.
down the women. I'll never talk down the women.
No, they're all queens. Obviously, Michelle had it right. The guys just needed to execute. Both the guys were the ones who fell down, Chauncey and Huey not getting it right. And second time in a row that they failed. And I thought TJ had the most fun at the end of this. He's like, man, I was sitting on the side, I was cheering you guys on, I really wanted you to do well. And he's like, but hey, great news, you did get $6,000. Well done.
By the way, this challenge, you know how Melissa was at the top and we weren't sure how far it is, and
Yeah.
she was scared, like, when you're up that high, if she fell. How much we've talked about in previous podcasts, how much safety testing do you think was done on this one?
Oof. I mean,
Because
listen.
if Chauncey did fall from that top and he didn't come down, if he just
Yeah.
dropped from that top, he's hitting people
It
all the
looked
way
very
down.
close.
And
It
he's a
looked
big dude, man.
it looked close. Like seeing him fall, like I don't know who was the two guys towards the bottom, but he barely missed them.
Yeah.
Like it
But
would have been.
if he smacked Olivia's nose,
Oh, mate.
you know what I mean? Like those skate helmets that they wear aren't
Yeah.
doing anything when a 200-pound dude is falling from the sky and smacks you in the
Mm.
head. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was a crazy one. If it went bad, it could have gone really bad.
Or even if Melissa ended up falling from the top, because that's
Yeah.
why she was so scared. Because normally when you do, like, I've done those things where you go to like a forest and you climb a tree, and then there's like obstacles that you do from one tree to the other, and you're like climbing stuff, or you're like doing, like the little two ropes where you get the one rope at the top and the other rope. I don't know, I'm doing something with the screen here for those that are listening to the audio, but you got like the two ropes that you're gonna, like, it's kind of like walking a tightrope type of thing from one tree to the other. So you
I've
do
seen
all these kind
videos
of
that
things.
look like that too, you know.
Yeah, but anyways, what I'm trying to say is you normally have two clips.
Yeah.
So you always keep one clipped on for safety, so that even if something goes wrong, you're still in the air. But Melissa had one clip. Now that I think about it, she had to unclip and then climb over to the other side, trust the people.
Yeah.
And
Free
it was
air.
high, man. Like, it was high. Put
Yeah.
some respect on Melissa's name. She's probably
Well,
she's too normal for the show. Like, I mean,
yeah,
they
maybe.
need to get more whack jobs to do the show. Like, people who don't care about their safety. Melissa's like, I've got a kid, man. I gotta go
Well, a
home. I
lot
gotta
of
provide. I
times,
gotta provide.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what she needs to worry about, especially if she falls from that. Like, normally
Yeah.
the falls from over the water, which they do a lot, it's a staple of the show. It's open water, right? Like,
Mm.
they usually spread out over a long platform, or it's one at a time, or whatever the case may be. But this is the first time they really could have just fallen on someone's head. on someone's neck, like
But
just
even at that
completely.
height, like
Yeah,
if you were to go down like with one leg on it and you go head down, land like at that height, if you landed wrong, you could seriously injure yourself with your neck going into the water or something like that. It's actually, I didn't even come into this thinking that we were going to discuss the challenge for this long, but now that
I
I
was
think
just
about it,
creeped out, especially because you had people clipped in, so they couldn't go anywhere, right?
yeah,
So that means like if someone's falling, they're just gonna take the full like you can't even it's you're trapped. If a leg or a foot or an arm gets locked in somewhere and you're
uh,
still clipped in, like it's
yeah,
you know
okay.
what I
I
mean? I
feel like
was
people are like Chris and Kahuna, move on from this because
yeah,
this is a
okay.
very grim, it's a very grim topic to talk about for too long. But yeah, I thought TJ had a lot of fun. The response from everybody being so sad about the $6,000, and meanwhile, people who did the early challenges, they're like, man, we got less than that.
That's a
Like just be
season.
happy. That's a season. We got 12,000 for a whole season. You guys are getting 6,000 in a challenge. Can we come back? It's why you got so many of the old school people wanting to play All Stars now. But yeah, let's talk a little about the Melissa and Kyland hanging out, a little bit of massaging happening, in the beginning, getting closer to each other. Kyland watched Melissa on Total Madness, was it that he watched just
Yeah.
before? So he's very familiar with her. Bit creepy. I hope you didn't tell her that. Hey, by the way, I just watched your season beforehand. But some interesting stuff happened between them at the club, right? What did you think of that whole scene?
I mean, it was interesting because I mean, I didn't know until you told me last week or 2 weeks ago that he was neurodivergent or
Yeah.
on the spectrum. So knowing that beforehand, when what happened, I was like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense. Like, I'm
Mm,
surprised he wasn't like bad touch, bad touch. Like, like
mm,
out in public is not a big thing for him, but I could also understand where Melissa's coming from. She's obviously used to a lot of attention
mm,
from males, and then to be rejected while on stage in front of everyone on camera, when her whole life is, her persona and image and stuff like that. Like, I see where both of them coming from. It's an interesting dynamic to see play out on screen because they don't usually have someone like Kylan, I guess, and be
yeah.
so openly to talk about it.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Kylan assumed that she knew about it because he's been open about it on other shows. So he probably
Mm.
thought, surely you know by now, but she didn't know. Clearly, she hasn't watched his
Like, I'm
seasons.
from Wales. What are you talking about?
Yeah, she didn't watch the Challenge USA season 1. Not that interested in it, but one of the things that stand out for me about this with Kylan is that once again it just proves to be like I didn't watch his season and what he said, but people were so like, oh, he was being this and he was being that with what he said, and I remember there was this big thing about him being voted out, and he said something to Xavier, who won the season, um, something about his nephew not being proud or something like that. And people were like, "Oh, this is so bad" and stuff. It wasn't great, but again, this kind of proves that he doesn't know how to act in certain social
Mm.
situations. And there are people who know this today that knows that he's got this thing, and they still hate on him. They still hate this guy when he can't help who he is. And like, I mean, maybe he shouldn't go out on a international global TV show and put himself. But then, who are we to tell him not to do it? Like he's pushing himself. He's pushing himself to get out of his comfort zone and to not let this limit him. But what I find annoying is that there are still people that will hate on this guy for the fact
I
that he
mean,
is on the spectrum. I'm like,
come on,
what is
but
going
even
on?
beyond the spectrum, like how many people are completely okay with public displays of affection like that? A
Yeah,
lot
a
of
lot of
people
people
would
aren't.
like. A lot
Yeah,
of people would shy away from a kiss like that, especially when
yeah,
it's a girl that you like and you're still kind of feeling it out. Like,
mm,
people get embarrassed super easy with stuff like that, like
yeah.
things like
But it
maybe
was
not the
Melissa
people
though.
that will go on a TV show. Well, yeah, I wouldn't shy away from Melissa, but
No, but yeah, I get what you're
how
saying.
cool
I
is it
get
for
what you're
him?
saying.
How cool is it for him though? When he like if he's a fan, like he just watched totally like, wow, she's amazing, and then she's there in person and
Yeah,
next to him.
living the dream,
It's
mate.
good on you, Kylan. Yeah. He's won already.
Living the dream. I found it pretty cute how she afterwards she was like, oh, she felt bad. She's like, oh no, I reacted badly because of this. And they ended up going back to their room, and then all he wanted to do was talk strategy the whole night until like 3:30 a.m. And she's like, I just want to get a kiss from this guy, I want to cuddle, and he can't shut up about the game.
I'm not I'm not seeing long-term relationship here.
Nah, I don't think so either. I feel like maybe he would get more involved, but I feel like Melissa after the season, she'd be like, he was the person that I found comfort
Yeah.
within for this specific season while I was out there. But I just don't think she will stick around. She lives in the UK, man. Like, unless Kyland wants to go over there and, you know, get used to drinking tea every morning, you know, having a cup of tea instead of a coffee, an
You probably
American
obsessed over what
Americano.
type of tea to have and stuff.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't see longevity there either. During this time here, though, as well, we get a lot of things happening, right? We get explained about the whole. There's a US team, there's a UK team. US is going to take out the UK, and they don't know that the UK is working together. But I kind of feel like both sides know of each other towards the end of this episode. Like, I don't feel like it was this covert thing, really, like Jay was trying to make it out to be.
Yeah, because it doesn't. I was like, isn't that obvious? Like, it felt like lines were drawn pretty early and pretty quickly, right? So
the most interesting thing, and I just kept like having all these question marks next to me the whole time. What's the mean girl stuff with Raven coming into this season? Like, it's just there's a lot of Raven hate. Is Raven the new Amber this season? She's taking that role. Like, it feels like every season there has to be a girl that the other girls just dislike.
Yeah, I mean, her and Nerys did get into it pretty heavily last season, and like even in the
After
reunion show,
Yeah.
like the whole lot, they were going at it. So that's just leftover bad blood, I think. And Nerys is similar to what you said, like with Olivia, she's high in the pecking order with this girl group. She's at the top of that list, and if she's holding grudges, it kind of becomes the whole group's grudges. And I don't think Raven's winning any, like, you know, social games here herself, actually, by feeling like she's at the bottom of the pecking order and cementing it and solidifying it the whole way through. You know, everyone's talking about Chauncey, and she's like, nah. Like, you read the room, man. And then you go, I think I'm at the bottom of this. Well, yeah, it's because you just went against what they all unanimously said, you know, like
I kind of found I don't know what it is, like with Raven, like, she didn't play a smart game. Let me just put that out there. Like, firstly, I agree 100% with you. Something attractive about a girl standing the ground though like that, and she's like, I don't care, I'm doing me, you know. And I was like, Raven,
I mean, Kieran
see
sees
you.
it, I think.
I see you, Raven. I see you. You know, like, do you? It's maybe not going to win you the season, but I like the fact that she's, you know, like, trying to pave her own way. I just don't know if she's got that. That's why I like Cara Maria, right? She was dancing to the beat of her own drums most season as well. You know, so there's clearly I've got a type, but I don't know if Raven can back it up like that. You know,
she's not the type to go against the entire house, is she?
Nah, I just don't see it. I feel like there's a lot of potential weaknesses for her if she does go down to the arena where she would be found short, you know. But it was interesting to see her also then afterwards mingle a bit with Karen and sort of, you know, be like, oh, not normally my type, but listen, I'll do what I need to do. Girl's got to eat. Girl's got to bring back the bag at the end of this season, you know. So she's like maybe going to mingle in with Team UK a little bit.
I mean, there was no doubt whatsoever Kieran was gonna do something this year. He was hooking up with somebody, at least one. But I mean,
he
Raven's
could do
beautiful.
worse. I was going to say he could do worse.
Yeah, she's stunning. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Although, I mean, this whole cast, like it's like I said last week, it's just an amazing looking cast. It's ridiculous.
Definitely. And I feel like we're going to get in trouble because we keep mentioning it. I can't get in trouble because I'm single, but I should rephrase it. Kahuna's going to get in trouble because he keeps mentioning it.
My wife would probably agree with me. I'm sure. There's plenty on both sides.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see that play out there. We do get this whole dynamic between James and Huey, a bit of a friend sort of relationship, a bromance. I feel like Huey's wanting a little bit more than a bromance, but James is seeing it as a bromance. But he's also throwing hints down there, like, listen, you know.
I like that he's cool enough to play along and, you know, flirt back and stuff. Like, you can have fun with it. He's not sort of. I don't think he's leading him on too strong, but he's having fun with him. He's showing that he's comfortable and cool with him. We're friends, you know.
Hmm. What did you think of Jay's strategy that he used on both Chauncey and Yui at different times? So, while Yui's in the club, he's like, mate, if you want to control your own fate, it looks like you're going to go and you probably just want to go in there, see what it is, control your fate, call someone in, it's probably a smart
Yeah.
move. That's what, I don't, like, I'm not saying anything, but, smarter people than me in the past, that's kind of what they do. What did you think of that move? Like, would you have seen through Jay's BS if he did
I
that?
mean, yeah, absolutely see what Jay's doing, but then I started thinking about it and I was like, it's not without merit, like
Hmm.
completely, because of because if you go down, you pick, right?
Hmm.
So yeah,
But,
throw
but,
me
but
in
here's the
and
thing.
I'll
Here's the
pick
thing,
Corey
though.
in a hall brawl, like that sort of thing.
That's what the fans came here for. They want to see it. The BK on the one corner, lining up from the left. It's the BK Kahuna lining up on the right. It is Corey. Yeah, people want to see that. But no, I think that for me personally, if I was out there, I would be like Chauncey. I'd be saying to them, listen, if someone calls me down, I'm going to be fired up to go. Plus,
Yeah.
I'm like James. I know I'm winning brains, speed, endurance. Doesn't matter what you throw down there. I'm winning it, right? But
Of course.
but
I
the,
didn't
but
argue.
yeah, I know. This is why I got you on the podcast. You're like, you're here for a reason. You're here to help me
That's it.
inflate this ego, But no, listen. I feel like there was merit to what Chauncey said as well, because you want to test your alliance at some stage. Just
Mm.
by saying, "Oh no, I'll just go down there." You're giving your alliance the easy out. They're like, "Oh,
Oh
now
yeah,
we can just
100%.
turn our backs against you." I'm like, "Nah, I want to know where
Yeah.
you're at. I want to know if you've got my back or not." So if you're going to vote against me, now at least I know where I stand and I can make other plans in the future. But Chauncey was clueless all up until the deliberation. Like, what was that? Like asking questions to people, like, "Hey, man, have I done you wrong?" And they
That
were
did
they
not go
were
the way he planned it. No.
they were holding the receipts on him. They had the receipts.
Man, he genuinely did not know. Like he's like, oh, like, but that's kind of one of those things, right? Like, I'm not saying Chauncey's a bully or anything like that, but when there are
Nah,
people that like when things are like, oh, I had no idea. Like, because I thought it was totally cool. I was cool with it when I backstabbed you, and it didn't mean anything to me. So I assumed it mean nothing to you as well, like, and you just don't put yourself or have the awareness to see what other people would be feeling in a scenario or a situation, especially one that you were a part of and caused. So like, and they had big ones. Like when you turn to someone and say, "Have I ever done you wrong?" and he's like, "You literally voted for me when you told me you wouldn't." And then Michelle was like, "We were the only ones standing." Like, there were bad ones too. It's not like immediately, like there wasn't even one person first that was like, "No, we're cool," and then the person at the end said it. It was back to back with some pretty big ones. No one was like, "Well, you didn't put the milk back in the fridge that night," and that pissed me off. It was like, "No, in the game, strategy wise, you fucked us," or you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
I know what you mean. Yeah, yeah. I feel like that's like the salesperson to me be like, turn that objection into like a positive. Like if they were like, you
that was a hard
backstabbed
one.
me. Yeah,
That's
but
a
I'd be
hard
like,
term, man.
I know, but I'd be like, listen, mate, it's because I did you bad or I did you dirty in the last one that this time around I can't do it again. I owe you one. You need me in the game. I'll take a bullet for you in this game because I effed you the previous time. Like you try and like reverse that, reverse Uno, the logic back on them. But he had nothing. He didn't even
Nothing.
try anything. Like, I mean, that could
He
still
even
not have
did the
worked, but at
old
least he would have.
he did the old kid thing of like, I knew he was gonna say that. I
That's why I asked him first because I
yeah,
wanted to get that one out of the way. It's like, what?
he did not know he was gonna say that.
Yeah, he was stumped. I was shocked. I mean, poor
And
guy. Like he seems like a nice guy.
everyone laughing and saying
Oh
how bad it was. Put the shovel down, Chauncey. Like so bad. After Jessica's like digging her own grave last week, we called her the grave digger. Chauncey can start a business with her, man.
yeah, I feel like this is why I came into this feeling like, oh man, like the standard seems like just not the format, not the challenges, not even the arena challenge. It's just the standard feels lower, and it's because
Mm.
all of these people are really trying to find their way.
Experienced.
None of them are
Yeah.
successful. They're not known for being like great players of this game, right? So they're trying to
Yeah.
figure it out while they're out there.
I mean, exactly. That's why they're there because they failed at it in the past. And I
Mm,
feel like I said this before, but it does have vibes of old school challenge when the
mm.
strategy wasn't as sophisticated, when the people were a little bit more party friendly as opposed to competition based. It feels like that beginner feel, and it's a little bit like that. And maybe the fandom and the community has moved on and expected stronger gameplay, has expected
I do.
more sophistication.
I
But
definitely
for the
do.
people that have been complaining for years, and we know the challenge fandom is the worst for saying old school, old school, old school,
Yeah.
this feels old school with kind of how bad they are. Because you're
Mm,
not a fan of the old school as far as gameplay and all that sort of
yeah.
thing goes.
Yeah, but where's Mark Long though? That's what we'll hear. Like we need Mark Long back. You know, get him back
Yeah.
on the show. Yeah, it's coming. Or yeah, they'll want Coral back. Like Coral's not there.
Yeah.
Like they'll want the old favorites there. It doesn't matter if they're 50, or 60. Like we want them back on the street. And if they're there and they don't club hard enough and go party hard enough, there'll be complaints about it. It's
I
like
like that.
you better get your
Like,
ass in the club.
Bananas isn't even like OG. Like, he's not like
Yeah.
old school. He's second generation, right? Or whatever
Mm,
it is. But he's 40s. He's the old
mm.
man of the challenge, and people are still calling for like season
Before
one.
him.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's too new. Bring back like people from the first season. No, it's fun. It's fun. It's all we're having a laugh, but we get it. We get it. That's why All Stars is there, and it's got a following, right? Because people want to see that. But yeah, something about the strategy for me is not quite there yet. They were talking about even in this when Raven had this conversation with Karen. Suddenly everybody's freaking out. Oh no, what if this is like a different format? And only the people that voted for the person who goes in now can go in. And they're like so overthinking the game. And it's like, where did this come from? Like, I don't remember TJ saying anything like that. With
Yeah,
Horacio not being up for
it's a big
grabs.
swing.
But it's a big swing, yeah. And they were like, oh, what if this happens? And suddenly they're talking about burn votes and things. And in my mind, I'm thinking, surely no one's smart enough to burn vote on this season. Like these dum-dums don't know what a burn vote is. Like, what are we doing? And then two of them actually come out with the burn vote, and it's James and Karen. They actually follow through with a burn vote here, but it blows up in their face.
Trying to outthink that. Like, they have to remember what show they're on. The
Mm,
challenge is not like Survivor. It's not trying to be the peak of like meta gameplay strategy. Like, it
mm,
much of it is the physical nature of it. Much of it is the social nature of it. So they're going to
mm.
keep the formats relatively simple to understand, at least. And
And I do appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely, because
Yeah.
the scenario that they postulated, I was like trying to like, wait, so if they do that and you can like, it got really common. If they start
Yeah.
all burning votes and stuff, I'm like, wait, who? I didn't know how it would like what they thought it would play out like. I'm like, I don't get
It
what
was
you're.
Kyland who came. It was Kyland who came up with it
Yeah,
as well.
he
Like,
probably he could see it. I think
yeah,
he's like,
because Kylan is constantly thinking game,
yeah,
constantly like, what if TJ does this to screw with us? Or
yeah, he
he
sees
comes
the
from
code.
he comes from Big Brother. Expect the unexpected. That's the motto of Big Brother, and he
That's
was
not the
expecting the
challenge though.
unexpected. Yeah, but yeah, I mean. Quite an interesting deliberation, quite an interesting vote at the end. Obviously, Chauncey does end up getting 17 votes, copping the majority of those votes, then deciding to take a shot at someone down there. Were you surprised that he took James on compared to
100%.
anybody else? He could have had anyone. Like if you
Anyone.
would, yeah, if you were in Chauncey's shoes and you could have chosen anyone to go up against, and obviously Corey's not on this season. Otherwise, I know Corey would have been out there because the guy, you would have been like, the guy's got no legs. You'd outrun him any day, right? But looking at that, if you're Chauncey, you're in his body, you're out there, who do you take on?
I mean, James is probably the worst person to pick, right? Like,
Mm,
because as far as knowing anything about him, about what he's capable of, about like he looks like an absolute physical specimen. Chauncey's not like Chauncey's obviously very athletic and more athletic than James, but if you're picking, if you get to choose,
Yeah.
you get the guy that's bigger and stronger than you. And I have no idea about, like, people are saying he's smart. I don't know how.
Well, he
If that
used strategy. He actually used
he
the
did,
burn vote. So you used some strategy to show that he's got
yeah,
some brains about
that's
what he was
true.
doing, you know?
Yeah, like, is it? I would rather go against pretty much anyone in that house than
Yeah.
pick
I reckon
James.
he should have just
Do we?
gone Jay. No, I reckon he should have just been
Jay,
like, Jay, come now, mate. Like, Jay would be fast. He'd probably be good in the challenge as well.
yeah,
But take a swing at the guy who just absolutely backstabbed you. Like I said, we're boys, and then suddenly we're not
yeah,
boys. I would not like Horacio would have been the last person on the list. Like I would not have touched him, even if he was like pretty. He was like, oh, maybe I'll get thrown in because I was direct with him. I don't
I
care,
guess
Horacio.
Jay's
You keep
maybe
your
not
ass
that
up there.
bad.
Hmm?
Jay would have the endurance though, and that's why I picked
Yeah,
James. He goes, I think I can outrun James. He's not
I
outrunning
think
Jay,
Yui's the right
but
answer.
Huey's the right answer. But also Jay might be pretty good because he doesn't
Mm,
give big brain vibes, does he? Jay's not
mm.
particularly smart. I don't think he's dumb, but I've never been like. Has he ever done a really good move in the game or shown
Nah, not
like
really.
nothing, right? He's not very smart.
Yeah, but I mean, he did beat
Puzzles and
CT.
stuff like that.
He beat CT at the rope challenge.
Yeah, that was a
Like so, I
hustle
mean,
though, was it? It was just like, just
yeah,
keep
probably.
going. Like it's just
Yeah,
keep pulling, like don't stop. And he
yeah,
kind of, outpaced the older man kind of thing.
yeah. And CT wasn't in shape that season either.
Yeah.
He came back like a little bit rough, but yeah, I don't know. It's a tough call, man. Like because you look at Chauncey and you'd think to yourself, this guy's gonna physically dominate anyone. He's gonna have the endurance, but the one thing he doesn't have is the smarts. And it's a game of tic tac toe.
Yeah.
Like how the freaking hell did you never play as a kid? Like his
He was
strategy
putting
in this,
them like randomly, like,
yeah,
I'm like, okay, you got 3 there, man. And then he just goes over to the other side and puts one randomly in some spot that didn't even block. I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah. James is doing the whole diagonal and horizontal sort
yeah.
of one to double up on those points, to get 2 points at a time. But Chauncey was really struggling, and he did almost make a comeback towards the end. Like he had a really good last round,
It wasn't
last
because of
couple of rounds.
strategy. It wasn't because of smarts. It was because
No,
James
it's
was puffing, man.
James was walking. He was
Yeah,
walking to
James
the
is
thing.
The Walking Dead.
He
He's
was
like,
doing
oh.
he was doing the power walk up and down, not even a full on power walk, like a half power walk up and down to get those ones in. But yeah, James isn't like, I don't know who said it. I think it was Melissa said James is in some serious trouble if he gets to a final.
Yeah, Melissa, she laughed at him. And then
All of them
she
did.
laughed in the thing. And then the edit got like, they're in the arena, but it just showed her doing a cheeky smile after James was like huffing and puffing really
Yeah.
badly. But she's got a good point though, man. Like, if he's gassing now, like he's not running up a mountain.
Hmm. Yeah, he's not running up a mountain. He's going to struggle, and that's why I
Yeah.
found it so funny because he was on his ass. He was lucky to get out of this, and he comes out of that. He's like, I just smashed that. I'm like, what are you talking? Like, did we watch the same display? Because
I mean, he
that was
did well at the start. The first two,
yeah.
he got him like by 3 each time or something. He got ahead, and it was because he
Mm.
was smarter. But yeah, man, he
Do you
was
feel like
sucking wind.
Do you feel like TJ got in Chauncey's head before he went out there? Because he threw him off the emotional one before he even got started. And I thought that was a bit dirty by TJ, like, how's your baby girl doing? Or you missing your baby girl back home? Who are you doing this for? Tell us a little bit about that. I was like, TJ, man, don't
It
do
just
this
adds.
before he has to go out there. Like
It
for some
just
people,
adds,
for some people, I feel like it would motivate them, but I feel like that just, for someone like Chauncey, it'd probably have the opposite effect.
man. You know, when we were watching Global World Championship, right?
Mm.
And I said, when you consider context and storylines and all that sort of thing, I thought Emily's elimination against Troy was like one of the worst in the challenge history. When you consider the Australians, the rivalry, they're fighting, the crying afterwards, it was like really embarrassing. I feel like this string of events for Chauncey, where he is who he is, they play up that he's a champion's partner who's just had a baby. He's playing for this baby. He's athletic. He's strong. He stuffs up the clip. He stuffs up the deliberations like one of the worst in history. He goes in and then he loses this. I'm like, it's like one of the worst showings in a single episode from
Mm.
someone who's not like considered bad. They're
Nah.
not a Huey. They're not like the fun guy in the episode or the season. He should be
Mm.
good, but it was such a woeful performance, like
Mm.
in this back to back to back.
Can I say one thing though? Like as he was leaving, and he said that this is part of life, this is part of growing, this is part of being someone that succeeds. You've got to accept failure, and failure will happen along the road. I like that attitude that he left the game with, and by saying that, because sometimes like people like look at Bananas, man, like failed this first season, went out first. We always look back at that, and now he's the person with the most rings. So Chauncey could come back. I don't know if he's got the ability to be a champion though. I just don't know. Like there's a season he could be a champion, and if he's partnered with the right person, or if he's in the right team, because I can see him physically keeping up. But to me at this point, and I could be wrong, I don't know the guy. I mean, I've seen him on an edited show for two seasons. I've just not seen within those 2 seasons within the edited show anything that has pointed me towards him being that complete challenger that you need to be a champion, right? And then I don't see the personality either. I think he's a nice guy. Chancey would be the kind of guy I would love to hang out with outside of world. He would be the kind of guy I would want to have in my corner. Like I feel like he would be a loyal as hell person. Like he'd just be a good dude. But does that translate well to the TV show? Like I feel like if he wasn't Amber's partner, he probably wouldn't have gotten the call back this season.
There's another thing he's got going for him, and you mentioned it before. Like, not only is he Amber's partner, I think that plays a big part. So he may get a call back in future just because he can reference Amber and the baby, like all the
For
time,
sure.
and they love that. But you said before, he looks like Michael B. Jordan. Like
He
he's a
does.
good-looking dude. He's
sure.
a very good-looking dude. So he's always got that as far as getting on the challenge.
If
And
you
a
have to
season
choose
like
between
this,
him,
especially
if you have to choose between him and Nam, you choose him every single time, right?
over Nam.
Yeah.
Well, Nam's got that glass back and all the issues. He's got a curse apparently. No, Nam can
glass back. Jeez, mate.
No, poor Nam. I had a lot of hope for Nam.
He didn't even get the call back for this season. It would have been the perfect season for him.
Yeah, I think he was in the rumored cast, or at least, and maybe he rejected it.
So
I don't know,
he used to
get out.
He used to get injured on the seasons. Now he gets injured prior to the seasons. It's just getting worse and worse. Gets pulled out of the game before it even starts.
Namvo. Yeah, I don't know actually. I maybe choose because I feel like with Nam, we still haven't seen what he's actually capable of, right? He didn't really fail anything properly. Like
I want ketchup. I want ketchup boy to come back. I want ketchup boy to come back. The guy, it was a ketchup boy. What was he doing? He was like eating ketchup or something. He did like those little crunches before the elimination, like the little micro crunches. You know which I'm talking about. A couple of seasons ago, I found him hilarious. I think he was like an American Idol singer or something like that. That's the kind of like characters I want to. That's what I'll never cast. Mustard. That's the one.
By the way, anyone listening, after that episode, right? I tried it. And he's 100% right. It works because I get night cramps in my calves.
Yeah.
And like I would wake up in the middle of the night like cramping. I'm like, I got mustard, a spoon of mustard. Like that dude on the challenge said it, and CT laughed at him. So I'm gonna try it, and it's like science. It freaking works. It actually, I googled it too, and it's a real thing. So he had something, and I'll never forget the mustard, even though I'll never remember his name.
So now next thing is you just start doing those little micro crunches that he did. Before you know it, you'd have a 6-pack, mate. Like you're gonna be you're gonna be ripped. No, listen. I think that's all we have for this week's episode. Actually, unless there's anything else you feel like we missed out on that you wanted to chat about.
No, like I said,
there was a lot
we've broken it down. Now that we've discussed it, there's a lot of good stuff in it. Like I was watching it, and like you going, it didn't feel like much, but there's a lot to break down in there. And again, I think it was just off the back that because of the way it played out, when you've got Chauncey as a storyline, and then what you weave around him is it going to be Huey? Is it going to be James? Or James gets called out. Sorry, James didn't get much, but compared to Burner's meltdown, compared to Big T like taking the spotlight, like that's a big sort of
Burner was
come
a
down from.
ghost.
Yeah,
She was a
Burner
ghost to me.
disappeared. Like, so she, as far as threat level or whatever, like they forget, don't they, on the challenge? They're like, I don't remember anything what happened last episode. We're not
Yeah.
gonna bring that up again at all. So
I
Burner's
doubt.
good now, apparently.
I doubt she actually disappeared. I think the editor just didn't focus on her this episode. But that Burner. You're not going to keep a good Burner down, man. She's going to come back. I'm telling you, she's just
Yeah.
waiting to explode in one of these future episodes. But nah, that was a lot of fun talking about the episode. I'm glad we, both dissected and analyzed everything and marinated a little bit on it over the last hour since we watched it. And I agree with you. I think that maybe a little bit of a dip just because, like you said, of the main storyline this week, but there are still plenty of good characters left. There is plenty of juicy spiciness that is going to come up. I mean, Michelle is getting closer to Caleb, and you know that is going to be a hot mess. It's going to be disaster. Michelle is going to be heartbroken by the end of this. She keeps falling for the bad boys, and I just don't think it's going to work out. So plenty of drama.
Kieran and Raven will go further. We're still going to see Horacio and Nerys. But that one works out, so that might be a sweet one.
Do you think Michelle and Tears on this whole Callum and Michelle one, and then Kieran and Tears by the end of the season because of Raven? It's kind of how I see it.
Oh, I don't know if Raven will put him in tears.
I don't think Raven is there for a long time. I think she's there for a good time and for the strategy. I feel like she won't commit. I don't feel
strategy with what she's been doing. I don't know if that.
Yeah, maybe the worst read. Maybe we'll leave. I should have done what Chauncey failed to do and just stopped the podcast like 5 minutes ago. Now I'm just like digging a hole for myself here, like my good mate Chauncey. The longer the podcast go, people are like,
put the microphone down, Chris.
Put it down. You're crap at podcasting, to reference Wendell. But just stop. No, but it's been fun, man, talking to you about this one. Obviously, like I said, it's been a long week. We've both been super busy, but I always enjoy breaking down the challenge with you. And I know that we will be back also to talk about Survivor 45 here on the weekend. So that will be a live show. Make sure that you tune into that as well. Lots and lots of fun there to discuss. I haven't watched the episode yet, but I'm sure it'll be a good one. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hitting the like, putting the notification bell on so you can be informed the next time that we go live. But for now, catch you guys next time. Bye.